ですか？
ご両親ですか。気が早いと思いますが、あなたのために会いましょう。え？
あの男がお前を離さないと体を触ってきて。
通報ありがとうございます。
Is Grand Blue Season 2 outdated? Bars. But ever since I started watching this season, I've been asking myself that question for the longest time. Because for an anime that had a highly anticipated Season 2, because there was such a huge break after Season 1, I'm kinda always just disappointed to see how little people talk about this anime. Because it felt like every single year, people would reminisce and talk about one day finally getting Season 2. But as Season 2 is nearing its end, it feels like no one is actually talking about this anime. But why? What happened? Well, there's a few reasons as to why I think this happened. But the most common reason that you could apply, you could just say that as someone who got later into Grand Blue, maybe the fanbase is just there and everyone who should be there or enjoys it is there, they're just not that much. And as such, my perception of the anime not being enjoyed or liked is massively skewed because I'm looking for numbers or something like that. And that could be true. And as such, the video can end here because then that just means I don't know what I'm talking about. But if you stick around, I'm gonna tell you a few things about this anime, positive and negative. The choice is yours. Now when it comes to Grand Blue, the anime in itself is very unique because first of all, if I told you what the premise of the anime is, it's basically about drunk college / varsity students / whatever you want getting into a bunch of stuff. That is basically the entire premise of Grand Blue. And the thing is, you might be asking yourself, well, what is the point of this anime? This anime is extremely cultured. Not only is this anime delivering you a bunch of life lessons and just a bunch of things that you'll deal with when you get into varsity and just try to figure yourself out, it's beyond the initial impression of it because a lot of people think that it's just a shenanigans anime where dudes are just weird and creepy and there's a bunch of just bouncing stuff. It's basically something you would want no one to walk in and catch you watching. And they would be right.
I'll let you suckle my teats, boy. If you let me gobble your dung.
This anime still is a really good anime because the one thing that I really enjoy about this anime and this season specifically is just how fun Grand Blue is in terms of an anime. Because when it comes to delivering just pure fun in the most weirdest way, this anime just is top tier. And in fact, there's nothing like it because there's nothing more fun, I'm not speaking from experience, than just getting wasted and getting into a bunch of interesting adventures with your friends. Arguably, that is some of the peak moments that you'll have in college / varsity. You would not know how the day would start, but you knew by the end of the day, you're gonna see something weird, experience something weird. You don't know, but you're gonna have fun. And this is what Grand Blue delivers. But also, if you're a person who doesn't really get into that stuff and you wanna know what that's like, Grand Blue gives you that feeling and shows you what it's like. And it gives it to you always in a funny way, no matter what the situation is. And that is what makes this anime so special. It's not too deep, it's not too shallow, it's just realistically fun moments in terms of these characters. And this is why I thought to myself, this anime has to be a banger because this is something that never goes out of fashion. But as I started to watch the season and get excited about certain things and just sort out other people's reactions and to see what other people think and if they're enjoying it or just talking about it, I was kind of surprised as to how little traction this anime had because it seemed like no one really was talking about it. And that was the first big problem that I had because after I realized that, it got me thinking. So I decided to go watch an episode of Grand Blue, and after watching that episode, I thought about something. I asked myself, why was it funny? What were the things that I enjoyed about this anime? And after really thinking about the things that I enjoyed about this anime, it hit me. And that's where I found the biggest reason as to why I think this anime just doesn't have the traction that you would think it would, even though it has this universal topic, which is being drunk. Being drunk never goes out of fashion, but for some reason this anime is just not correlating to people. And the truth of the matter is, this anime is just outdated. And as such, when you really think about what makes this anime so much fun, it results in a split. Because when I analyzed my own laughter and enjoyment of the anime, I realized that there was one common feeling when I watched this anime, and that was reminiscing. And that's a problem. Because if you're a person who's a bit older, this is a very dangerous spot to be in. Because if you're watching an anime where someone or a bunch of people are just getting drunk and just wasted and getting up to a bunch of stuff, depending on where you are in life, that kind of just seems like you're stuck at a certain point in your life. You keep watching younger people do stuff and you're kind of just constantly reminiscing instead of living your own life. And also at this point you should be more sensible, and those things don't really relate to you. The only feeling that this anime can give you is just reminiscing at a certain point, whether you were into that stuff or not, because after a certain point you should have moved beyond that. That's what life teaches you and your responsibilities will show you. That's just what it is. But then when you go to the younger audience, there's a problem because the relatability factor of this anime is not there. Because first of all, a lot of the stuff that they deal with, it kind of sounds weird to say, but it feels a bit more pure. You know, just getting a bunch of beers or alcohol and having fun. In this day and age, there's a bunch of other stuff that people do that this anime does not show, that people do when they're having fun. And also, if you're a person who's young who wants to get into the world, to be real with you, the equivalent of watching Grand Blue to try and get some sort of experience or just have fun would be like watching American Pie in 2025, seeing what's going on and being like,
yeah, dude.
Nice.
and that's the problem. It feels old school, and as such, this anime is stuck in this in-between spot where it is this thing that is young and vibrant and about living life and having fun and all these wacky experiences, but it seems to not be able to identify with any group unless you're very specific. And what I mean by this is that you have to be like a Grand Blue fan who really likes the series, and it doesn't matter what age you are, you're gonna watch it. And that's part of the reason why I've realized this anime just does not get the traction that it does. It does have traction within its own community, but it's very focused and just filled with reminiscing because of the long break and how long it took for this season to come out. A lot of people are approaching the season with this thing of saying, I remember this anime, it was funny at some point in my life, I want to say goodbye or just enjoy it for one last time, and then I'm just gonna move on. And this really cooked me in terms of just my mentality of just appreciating the anime, because every time I laughed, I started to think to myself, is this just funny because I keep reminiscing about certain things, or is this actually just a funny, good anime? I didn't know anymore. When I just stepped back and looked at certain things, everything just got so negative. Because even in terms of the animation styling, if this anime came out 3 years after the first season, I would not even be surprised because the animation isn't even that crazy. So you can kind of see that this anime is locked in a certain point in time. And you kind of look at it in 2025 and think to yourself, why are you here? And that's the problem, and part of the reason why I just don't like what's happening. Because arguably for a lot of fans, maybe this is their goodbye to the anime. I don't know if this is the final season or not, but you want to be able to celebrate certain anime and wish them goodbye in a positive light. But right now when it comes to this anime, it just feels like a person who just doesn't know when the party is over and is just sticking around and trying to have fun. So when you open Grand Blue Season 2 and you watch it, you can laugh sometimes, but you think to yourself, what is this anime doing in 2025? And that's not how you want any anime to go out. But it feels like this is how Grand Blue is going out right now in terms of season 2. Only a specific group will enjoy what's going on. Only a specific group will appreciate what's happening. But even within that group, there are flaws that we're overlooking. May need to just kind of accept that, you know what, let's just experience this. But generally compared to what's coming out nowadays, this might not really apply to what's happening. And you constantly get reminders of this because of the style, because of the topics discussed, and some of the things that you see within the anime. And that's really sad to me. that's not how you want an anime to go out. But also when I think about the situation of Grand Blue, it really does make me think about certain anime that people keep hyping and talking about, wanting them to return, and why certain authors are very tentative about making that return. It's the same thing that's happening to Grand Blue, because on paper everything made sense. On paper it seemed like it's something that could have worked in terms of nostalgia, but also a younger generation who just want to get drunk and have fun. But it's not working. And instead, this anime that just wanted to return and be celebrated, in a sense, is leaving as an embarrassment. And that's just not fun to see. But that's pretty much the situation from my perspective and what I see about this anime, because I can enjoy the anime, but based on, well, no one really talks about it, but based on what I see, I can understand why no one talks about it. And it's really hard to deal with as an anime fan, because if you think something's good and you think something's funny, you kind of want to tell people about it and hope that other people enjoy it. But then at the same time, based on these problems, you kind of understand why someone wouldn't.